Welcome back to the Inspectations podcast. Thank you for joining us today. This is really exciting. This is a banner day here at the Able Group. Not only do you get to hear this handsome face, but we get to see and meet Will Cobb, the I don't know, what is your title at Back 40 Events?
I am the operations manager for Back 40.
Good deal. Well, thank you for joining me today. This is great to
for
have
having
you. I
me.
mean, this is cool. We're on TV. Talk a little bit about yourself and what is Back 40 Events. I know you're here in Maine.
Yeah, so Back 40 Events is an outdoor active event production company. We produce running events, cycling events, trail runs, ultra marathons, that sort of thing throughout Maine. We time races throughout New England. We
do a whole bunch of things.
That's really, that's the gist of it. Anywhere from timing a 5K to producing an event top to bottom, full weekend long festivals and that sort of thing.
I know that it's pretty incredible to see some of the folks that are in and around your events and see the family activities that are created. How did Back 40 get started?
Is that muted?
No.
Okay, sorry. So Back 40 got started about a decade ago. My father was looking for an almost retirement sort of way to fill his weekends and then transition out. And it started with just like going to races and running and finding that he felt like he could do a better job with the timing. Back then, the idea of chip timing, that new technology was not being very well implemented. So he decided to try it on as a just sort of more of a hobby, but if we can make a little bit of money, great. And then it pretty rapidly spiraled out of control into, it went from, maybe an event every couple of months to multiple events each weekend for, 6-8 months at a time. And so I got involved just sort of per diem in addition to my regular 9 to 5. And then after,
what was the draw? What brought you in? And you're like, was it just like, hey son, I'm like strapped, I need your help?
So, it was a little bit of both. It was, I had a new family, so I was looking for a little extra income, so that just made sense. It was easy, go work with dad for a few hours on a Saturday morning. But then it turned into a realization that I don't do the 9 to 5 all that well.
What were you doing before?
I worked for, at the time I was working for an internet service company here in Lewiston. And then when I made the switch from my 9 to 5 to Back 40 full time, I was working for Unum in a, we'll say, management role there.
Yeah.
And just, good job, good place to be, but banging my head against the wall. And I just found that it really wasn't for me. And the draw for this was, having that constant sense of like, hey, I did that. I built that. And now it exists, and feeling like that sense of accomplishment essentially every weekend.
Yeah. I always call it the turning around and being able to see what I built.
Yeah.
I often in this role, with an agency, you don't get to see the fruits of the labor, come to fruition all the time. So it's really hard. You're like, oh, I played, this part in it. But, putting on an event where you see, and sometimes hundreds, if not thousands of people there. And then you're like, hey, they had a great time.
Yeah. It's very easy to, for example, our trail festival weekend, Saturday, Sunday, for the stretch of about 48 hours, we're watching people go anywhere from 5K to 100 miles plus. And it's really easy, even though we put in all that sweat leading up to it, to have that day and watch those successes and share in them. And it's easy to have that and grab on and go, we did that.
Yeah.
Like, they completed that race, but we provided the opportunity, we provided the venue, and we gave people a memorable experience. And that's really what we've always tried to do. We've always told everybody that'll listen, we're not in the race business, we're in the experience business. We really want to create those unique experiences for people that keep them coming back.
Yeah. You mentioned, your dad wanted to try out this new technology and, and create a, really a better experience for the participants of those events.
Mhm.
How has the space or industry, evolved over the last, since you got started, and even, where you were able to take it from and move that
Sure.
forward?
So at the time, like I said, it's RFID technology that was really coming into its own in that industry. Prior to that, it was people standing at the finish line and writing down the bib numbers as they came through in order, and with a stopwatch, and then afterwards pairing them up, and then people would wait days,
Days. Yeah.
days to get their results. Um, when we started, it was just kind of the impetus of that RFID timing, and we were pretty well at the forefront of it around here, around Maine, New England. Um, the technology was there, the software not quite.
Yeah.
So while we were able to deliver faster results, it's still not quite where clearly not quite where it is today.
Yeah.
It was more of a by the end of the day we're going to get you results rather than by Tuesday for a
Right.
race on Sunday. Whereas today it's instantaneous. The software has come a very long way. We've changed a couple of times, manufacturers of hardware and software, but we're at a point now where you can cross the finish line, and within 3 to 5 seconds of your crossing, you're going to get a text on your phone that gives you your time.
Yeah.
Or you can walk over to our displays and see your time amongst all your peers right then and there. It's all happening in real time. Or you can tell your friends, hey, watch, here's the website. When you're going to see when I finish, you're going to see when I reach certain checkpoints, and those times will load up in real time. So that's
Yeah.
delivering on that experience, all of that. A lot of people, they come run and they run for fun, but most of them, they want to know what their time was.
Is that now an expectation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. If you don't deliver on it within, if you don't produce results within about an hour of the race being done,
Yeah.
that's totally unacceptable.
Yeah.
But we've gone so far beyond that where it is, like that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, is there are still operations out there that will that go
They're
with
still
that
writing
pace.
it down. Yeah.
They're okay with, as long as it's done today, you should be happy.
Yeah.
But it's so much, it goes into the preparation leading up to, that's where we iron all that out so that the customer gets that seamless.
Do you time your
experience.
kids to figure it out? You're like, all right, you go next two, and then you're like next.
I have threatened to time some of my soccer players in the past, and we have replicated some events with them in the past. But yeah.
I mean, so you create this expectation and this experience for the athletes. How do you help? They're obviously driven. They're driven to do these 100-mile races. They're driven to do these ultra marathons. They're driven to even step off their couch and do a 5K.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help them achieve those goals? I mean, yes, it's through instantaneous results, but what are some of the other things that you provide for that experience?
So it's incentivizing the entire event. We're going to produce an event that is going to make you feel welcome. It's going to make no matter your skill set, no matter how far along you are in your fitness journey.
Yeah.
We're going to welcome you there. The crowd of people that we're attracting is going to welcome you there. We're offering, registration incentives, whether it's a T-shirt or a neck gate or something like that. Just a little bit of a reward just for showing up. Really,
right.
We don't really do the medal for everybody, except in certain instances. But we just try to create a fun atmosphere. Like I said, it's about the experience. If you sign up for a 5K and you have trepidations about it, and you come and you don't have a welcoming MC on a microphone, and the registration or the check-in process is clunky, complicated, you've already checked out.
Yep.
And you've spent your morning that you were already stressing about this 5K. You've now added on to that stress. And so you're going to spend that entire race regretting coming to begin with. Whereas if we create a seamless experience, you registered ahead of time, you walk up, you give your name, you get your bib, and you walk away, and that's it. There's good music playing. There's an uplifting atmosphere. You go out there, you enjoy your run, and you get your immediate results, that immediate feedback on whether you reach your goal or not. We've found that just creating that experience, that goal becomes secondary.
And that's it's got to be true for, like, you must see that as you're, working in your business, but I mean, that's creating that experience, is true across all business. No?
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. I mean, you're in the marketing space here. It's about creating an experience, and like, I'm going to try and, I'm trying to make a living. So I'm trying to get you to give me that money. I have to give you something in return. And It's not just as simple as, oh, well, you get this widget, I'm going to dress it up. And so, like, just staying in my industry where I'm familiar, like, the common thing used to be a timer would show up. They'd show up with a laptop. They'd show up with their hardware, roll out a mat, and say, go. We tried to take it a step further, and we show up with a trailer with, barricades and a finish arch and all the extra bells and whistles, so that when, say we get hired by a race director, they hire us to come time their race, we have all this extra stuff. So suddenly it goes from a little 5K to an event. And just the simple thing of giving somebody something to run through and be the center of attention for a second, a finished shoot that looks professional. It takes that fundraiser 5K and makes it an event.
Yeah.
So,
and it makes people want to come back.
No question. No question. Yeah. They get that photo of themselves. I mean, we're all as vain as can be. So they get that photo of themselves crossing the finish line. They share it on Facebook, and, oh, I didn't know you did that race. That looks fun. I want to do that next year. Hey, come with me. So, creating that atmosphere, it creates that return customer.
So, your ability to put on these events, I mean, this is scalable, right? So it could be that 5K fundraiser, as you talked about, but you also do large scale events too. Right. I mean, you're not doing the Boston Marathon, but I mean, that's, that's maybe the next level up. Talk about the different scales of events and what the differences are to put them on.
Sure. So, I mean, like I said, we started as basic as can be. We get contracted to come time a 5K, and that's, a little bit of involvement leading up to the race day, and then we hand the race director the results, and we wash our hands of it after a few hours, and that's about as simple as can be. We started producing our own events 7-8 years ago. We started with our Last Man Standing Ultra Marathon event.
Oh, I didn't know you started with that one. Yeah,
that was our first one that we created from nothing. And year one, we brought in over 100 people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a pretty niche kind of event. So we were happy with it. But that one, you start talking about, I have to host the registration, which means I have to be thinking about the race maybe a year in advance and give people ample opportunity, especially for an event like that, where you're talking about people running over 100 miles. That's not something you sign up for 2-3 weeks ahead. You plan that. So I need to be thinking about that. And it's not just, okay, I'm going to give you the venue, I'm going to give you the sign up page. I need to tell them everything that they're going to get. I need to have my sponsors in order. I need to have all of that. And that's, for 100 people, where we've continued to grow. Our biggest event now is the Trail Festival at Pineland Farms. That takes place over Memorial Day weekend, 2 full days. Everything from 5Ks up to 100 miles. We have a 24-hour race that goes from noon Saturday to noon Sunday, and people will run over 100 miles in that event. We bring in 1,000 people to that one, plus another 500 to 1,000 spectators and family members, and so that involves booking a band. It involves getting food trucks. It involves having a vendor row and all of that. And so we're a very, very small team, which means we have a lot to do to get an event like that off the ground. And we're in the throes of that right now. We're 5 months away from executing that event, and we've opened our registration, but it's still just like crossing all those T's and dotting those I's, and they just keep new T's and I's keep cropping up. And but yeah, it is, as you said, scalable. The skill set is similar, from timing a little 5K. I don't like, I say little, but
hey, you haven't done one, man. That is just 3.2 miles feels like forever.
It does. It can. But it is the same checklist, just longer, just exponentially bigger. Same things that I need to do, but I need to do either more or on a grander scale for those bigger events.
So, as you think about what's coming, for, your space, where do you see, what's next? Like, what are you doing to make each event better? And then where are you seeing the future of these events going? I mean, you can't have AI running your marathon for you. So, it's still a very physical experience.
Sure. So from our perspective, technology is always, we try to stay at the forefront of that, because that is what has helped us really provide that crisp, clean experience for racers. You can talk all the day of stuff, like I talk about the music and the MC and all that, and we do that, and we do that well. But we try to stay ahead of really ahead of our competition, ahead of our racers' expectations. When talking about technology, whether it's a new way to present people with results or a speedier way, if there is one at this point. But the biggest thing is the hardware that we use to do our job. A lot of it over the last probably 5 years has made our lives so much easier. Just as an example,
not jotting them down,
not writing anything down, but just as an example, like we do a triathlon. We time a triathlon, and so with a triathlon, typically you have a start read. So I have to have equipment there at the beginning, and then once you finish your swim, you go into the transition area, and I got to get a read on you there. And then when you come out, I got to get a read on you there. You go in and out of there each another time, and then a finish. So I have 4 total read points, so 4 different sets of hardware, and it used to require a person at every one of those stations. Just manning it, watching the reads come in, making sure it was reporting correctly. And it was, you're talking a unit that's this big and requires space in a trailer. Today,
tough to get a trailer on a beach. No?
Yeah, no, for sure. And also we have to create a network, and we have to plug a thumb drive into that unit and walk it over to the finish line and enter it in and import everything. Whereas today, I fit all of my triathlon equipment in a case that's that big. Like a almost laptop size. It's 2 or 3 little boxes.
It's wild.
And so I can show up to a race with that, and I can execute this, which again, if I can show up and I don't need to have all this space, I don't need to have a trailer, I can show up in just my vehicle. It makes my life on work day that much easier. But it also means that, that hardware also comes with updates like networking built in. So I don't have to have that thumb drive. And that is where it comes in, and I can deliver those instant splits to a racer. John's mom and dad are standing at the results screen, and John just finished his swim, and they want to see what the time was. The moment John crosses that line, it pops up on that screen because my equipment is all networked, and that's part of the functionality of that current.
So
tech.
Mom yelling at him to bike faster than the next one.
Right?
Hey, you got to make up some ground. Yeah. You were in there with the fish for too long. That's fine. Well, where do you see, the company going? What are you guys trying to tackle? I mean, we're at the beginning of 2024. Everyone's got goals and resolutions and things.
Sure.
Where are you wanting to be?
So we've recognized in the last few years a shift in the types of events that people are doing. The 5K will always be there, but people are going longer and longer. So, for example, a triathlon, the sprint triathlon, which was like the shortest distance you could do, is really not very popular anymore. We've seen those numbers. We had a race where they would get 300 people. This past year, it was like 75.
Wow.
It just shifted. It's not people dipping out of the race or the triathlon idea. They're going to a half Ironman distance because they've just kind of tested out, and now they want that bigger challenge. We see that same thing.
Yep.
The ultra marathon space is growing in a big way, and we've made an effort. We'll continue to make an effort to show people that you don't have to be, an extreme athlete to do an ultra marathon. An ultra marathon technically speaking, is really anything over 26.2.
Yeah.
But generally it's about 30 miles is when you can call yourself that. Now, it's a long way, don't get me wrong, but I have personal friends who have completed,
I drive that far and I'm like, my God, where the hell am I
gassed.
Yeah, I'm just like, goodness, my commute to work is like, almost a song.
Yeah. I have friends who completed a 50 miler walking last year, and they tell, they can say, I'm an ultra marathoner, like, as long as there's no time limit on it. And that's another thing that we've tried to do, is make those things accessible. Like our trail festival race, we don't put time limits on. We're going to be there for 48 hours regardless. So if it's going to take you, if it's going to take you 20 hours to finish your race, it's going to take you 20 hours. That's up to you.
Right.
But I'm happy to give you that opportunity to check that box and cross off that achievement and say, tell the world that you did it. If I can provide that venue, I'm going to do that every single time. But so as another example, our last man standing, in the title itself is extremely intimidating. Last man standing ultra marathon. So right there, it's like, that's not for me.
Yeah. It's not for Dave. It's not for me.
It's not for me.
Yeah.
But the format of the race is really small bites. It's 4.2 mile loop every hour. So if you can do 4.2 miles, you can compete in this race. You can participate. And if you do the one and you feel good, go again. And so we've tried to look at it from a marketing perspective and say, really, this is a race for anybody. Yeah. And you get to be part of this. You get to be part of the community. And that trail running community, when we found, is an extremely welcoming group of people. And we've actually found that that's sort of more where the industry is going: less road, more trail. So we've used that as
it's dangerous. I mean,
for sure,
being on the road is dangerous. I mean, you see every day that, unfortunately there's some sort of accident or and oftentimes it's no fault of the runner and it's no fault of the driver. It's just, our infrastructure is not built to do anything except for drive as fast as you possibly can and stay in between the white and the yellow line. Hell to be, if there's any shoulder or anywhere to go, and you're screwed. I mean, we see that in Maine. It's terrible.
We see it a lot. I mean, being in the industry that we're in, we've seen it. People that we know that have done our events, that have been involved in those sorts of accidents. And it's tragic.
It is.
But we're fortunate here that we live in Maine. There are infinite trail systems to run on, to host events on. And so that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to be a part of that shift and really lead it. And from a production perspective, it is so much less energy. I don't have to reserve a police officer for 3 corners, for 4 hours during this race time. We're on a trail. And not only that, it's nicer. It's prettier. It's easier on your joints and everything. So we've really tried hard to push people in that direction. And like I said, specifically with that last man standing event, bring people in, bring those road people in, bring those maybe lighter runners in, and show them that there's this whole other world that they can be a part of. So that's a very long way to answer where the industry is going. From our perspective, I think longer distances and moving off-road to trail, same thing with cycling, off-road to mountain biking has really been the shift the last 3-4 years, probably.
Well, that's cool. Well, this has been awesome to hear about Back 40. We're listening to the Inspectations podcast in season 3, our first episode of the season. Cobb from Back 40 Events. But you're here for another reason too. It's of course wonderful to hear about, what you're doing with your business, but you're made the jump to participate with a tag team as well, and talk a little bit about what we're doing next, what our next project is.
Yeah, so I get to maybe not physically, but switch seats with you and conduct the interviews from here on out. Very excited about the opportunity. I've been on microphones, on radio, on emceeing events for a long time. So this feels like a good natural progression. It's a cool opportunity for me. I get to learn a lot about an industry that I don't have a lot of familiarity in. However, has a lot of application to what I do, because as the operations manager for my company, I do a little bit of everything.
Yep.
Everything falls under operations. So I'm going to use this opportunity to drag some info out of you, but learn a lot and try to apply it to my regular gig.
Might be a little bit like herding cats for a bit, though. Keeping people in line.
I have 3 kids. That's not new.
Well, I'm excited about it. Like you said, it's an opportunity to sort of switch chairs, and I'm happy to do that, and looking forward to how we make this all work.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining me today, man.
Absolutely.
You've been listening to the latest episode of the Inspectations podcast on behalf of Will Cobb, and soon to be, what do we say, producer of the Inspectations podcast, interviewer.
Be careful what title you assign, because that carries different salary implications with it.
Will be taking over here going forward. So thank you for listening.